The museum has a vast collection of, in addition to the otology that we covered in a different taping, is the throat, laryngeal, and nasal instruments. A lot of these instruments haven't been researched adequately yet, and we use students from Marshall University School of Medicine that do a wonderful job helping me research and label these instruments. So let's start with tonsillectomy. The popular instrument to remove the tonsils in the past was the guillotine. And as a matter of fact, when I moved to Huntington, West Virginia, there was an older otolaryngologist, and I was telling him that I have a guillotine. He said, well, I still use it, and he showed me how he does the tonsillectomy. So the guillotines, the principle of it is to introduce the tonsil through this hole, and then the knife here will advance slowly and cut off the tonsil. This came in different shapes and different design. This is an older piece. This is an ebony handle, and it's the same principle. You just push it here instead of the handle that I showed you earlier, and that's how the tonsils used to be removed. The big problem that they had at that time is when they removed the tonsil, they used to do tonsillectomy under local anesthesia. And there were many incidents, the patient swallowing his or her tonsil. So they came up with something to complement this type of guillotine that I showed you before. I mean, there are some of these sophisticated, complicated type, but they are all the same principle. You know, the guillotine will cut the tonsil off. So they came up with something that is very clever. And this here is the Mathieu, M-A-T-H-I-E-U guillotine. And what it does, if you just when you put the tonsil through this opening, the first thing will happen is to have this fork going through the tonsil, and then you keep pushing, and the tonsil will be cut off and be held by this two spears, so to speak, and you can remove it and avoid having the patient swallow his or her own tonsil. They came in different forms. This is an older type, and it has one fork here to hold the tonsil. Another very interesting one is this guillotine. So here is the opening. The tonsil goes through this opening, and the first thing happens when you press it here, this comes out, holds the tonsil in place, and you keep squeezing the handle. It cuts the tonsils out, remove it with the tonsil still hooked to this area here. They even had another way of doing it is this hook here. This here was used for if there is any piece of tonsil left behind, they use this here to remove it, and this hook will hold it in place rather than the patient swallowing it. And these came in different sizes, and this is a very interesting piece. I never seen anyone like it before, which has different sizes depending on the size of the tonsil. The other thing that I want to share with you, which is very interesting, is nasopharyngeal mirror. Again, it has an ebony handle, and here is the mirror here. But the beauty of it, it has this lever here, so when you move it, it moves it back and forth to get the exact line of vision that you can visualize the nasopharynx. Certainly this is before the fiber optic nasopharyngeal scope, but I thought that this was very, very clever to do it this way. The next area I want to share with you is the nasal field. There is the early nasal speculae is this kind, and it's called the miles, M-Y-L-E apostrophe S, the miles, and that will open and close. And as you can see, it's a little bit difficult and time-consuming to adjust it. So this was later on replaced by this kind of nasal speculum. And as you can see, you can just move the screw here, it opens it and closes it. And this here was called the Bower's nasal speculum. Later on, another kind of nasal speculum is that you just move the screw, it opens it and closes it. And this is the Duplay, D-U-P-L-A-Y, the Duplay nasal speculum. So it came in silver, in stainless steel or in copper. I have one more example of miles. I should have mentioned it before. This is a very, very old example of miles nasal speculum. And as you can see, this is made of ivory. So this is an early version of that. Another way of examining the nose is the use of the Frankel nasal speculum. As you can see the mechanism here. So this screw here will push this here and opens, or it pulls it and closes it. As in present day, physicians and patients believed in nasal irrigation. So they have the so-called the nasal douche. And this came in a box like this. And you put the saline or whatever solution here, and then you inhale it. You suck it in through one side or the other side of the nose. It came in this shape or other shape like this. There are several other type of nasal douches. This is an example. This is one example of nasal douche, where you put your nose through this and tilt it and suck the fluids in. The same principle here. I don't know, this, I thought that this is very interesting. It looks like a commode. But used to be used for washing the nose and the sinuses, the same thing here. The next area I want to share with you some of the collection here is laryngology. It's again fascinating area and how it developed. This is a device to do the laryngology with stabilizing the mirror and moving the mirror to one side or the other. The light will hit from behind, and then you can do the laryngoscopy examination here. This is similar device where it has magnifying glass here, and that's where the light is reflected. It's a complicated one. Again, the same principle. You just stabilize this by fastening this to a steady, stable area and do the examination. This is a very clever tool here. It looks like a vaginal speculum, but actually it's laryngoscopy. And what you do, it depresses the tongue here, and there is a mirror here to see the larynx. So with one hand, you just put here, instead of holding tongue blade and the mirror with the other hand, the old-fashioned way, this with one hand, it does both functions. And that's the mirror here. Along the same principle, this is another one. that has the laryngeal mirror here. They have the light source here, so you can look and you can change the angle of the mirror, and you will have direct light hitting the mirror and reflecting it to the larynx. And this is the same principle here, but it's portable here. This is where the battery sits, and you can use this here with the light hitting the mirror directly. This is something that a lot of older otolaryngologists are very familiar with. This is the usual Jackson laryngoscope. Jackson laryngoscope was the main scope that was used for almost 50 years, 75 years to visualize the larynx. To remove a polyp or whatever, take a biopsy, they used to use the laryngeal mirror with one hand and introduce this here after dripping some cocaine and numbing medicine on the vocal cords, and you just and that will bite the polyp or take a biopsy. Again, it has an ebony handle. I would say this is most likely developed by Green. Green was a famous laryngologist in around the late 19th century. The other area that you can see a lot of the O'Dwyer intubation set, and it came in set. It came with this type of end that will dilate the vocal cords, and then you can insert. It was like a mesh cone to put between the vocal cords, so you can allow the air to go through. And then came certainly the tracheostomy. This is one of the oldest sets of tracheotomy tubes. But this here is the best set I have seen for children tracheostomy. And you can see there are small tracheal cannulas here, and knife, the hook, and hemostats. I want to go over some of the otology devices that were used around the turn of the century, of the 20th century and late 19th century. People recognize when they were able to see the eardrum, they recognized that a perforation of the eardrum is part of the problem, drainage, hearing loss, whatever. So there was a movement to get what they call the artificial eardrum. So this is one brand here, and you can see artificial eardrum. And this is another one, and they were produced in Detroit, Michigan. And what it is, it's very clever. I don't know if you can see this well, but it looks like an eardrum here, and what they did, they insert this on the eardrum to cover the hole, and there is a thread coming out in case you want to remove it. I don't think I want to open it, bring it out, because I imagine that it will disintegrate, being that old. There was special, for earaches, they had nothing much to do other than some aspirin. So they used this type of rubber container that they put the hot water through this, and that hooks around the ear and would help the earache. There's another type, is this one here, and this, the nice thing about it, you can make it larger or smaller. And again, you fill it with warm water. But more interestingly, they had this here. This is a spoon that they used to use warm or hot mineral oil. So they put the mineral oil here, and then through this cannula, introduce it to the ear. And I read somewhere that frequently they used to put hot type of oil that could burn the eardrum. So this could have been a very drastic and painful way of doing it. One more thing I just want to share with you. This is a device here to remove oral polyps. So it has this here. So you put your thumb here, and this is, you pull it back, and it will cut and remove the polyp. One more thing I want to share with you. When microsurgery of the ear became a reality, the earlier picks that they used looked like this. So they have this type of instrument. So you hold it like this and do, instead of the straight picks that we use now. And the same thing, they had micro scissors, cup forceps. They are all like this, and I mean, you can give them credit, because this way your hand, everything will be out of the way. But it didn't catch on, and that was used for maybe 4 or 5 years, and then the straight picks and scissors and whatever came to the market. The simple thing we do now to look in the throat is to use a disposable wooden tongue depressor, throw it in the garbage. But to get to this point, there was at least a century of development of tongue blades, which I want to share some examples of that. So the earliest tongue blades are pure ivory, and these are some examples of the ivory tongue blades. Some of them are thin, some are thicker. This is very interesting tongue blade, and it is CSA, and it has the caduceus here, and this is silver. Again, this is also ivory. Tongue blades, I have different examples, but I just want to share some of them with you. This is silver, this is metal here. Some of them are heavy. And then came this type of tongue blade, and you can change this here, put bigger or deeper. So it came in sets. So you just put it there, push the tongue down, and get it out of the way here by putting it in an angle. The next thing came out was the folding tongue blades. So this is an example here, this is another example. And they are made of steel, brass. I'm also fascinated by the tongue scrapers. This was a big thing, and I want to show you some of the examples that we have at the museum here. Some of the earliest ones is something like this. I'm not going to bend it too much because this is ivory. So you will bend it to about this way, and then you scrape the tongue with it. Another one, the same thing, you bend it. This is more of plastic. Same example, the plastic one, you just bend it. This is an interesting one. This is gold. Gold, I can do it here. See how it becomes, this shape like horseshoe to scrape the tongue. Then instead of having the straight ones, they started coming up with this kind. This is silver here. This is another silver here. Same thing here. This is an older one. It's brass here with ivory handles to scrape the tongue. I thought this is clever, straightforward. Again, ivory handle and another scraper. This is ivory handle with plastic here. Same thing here, but metal. I thought these are interesting. This is one of the earliest ones. Again, it's ivory. It's like a spoon that you can scrape the tongue with. Same thing, ivory with plastic here. So they used to, there's so many different examples because they believe that the healthy throat is to keep that tongue clean and remove all the stuff on it.